I'm going to start this video off with a lot of information that's going to upset a lot of people, but after you type that angry comment, go ahead and keep watching. What I say might just surprise you. My favorite single player experience of all time is the Mass Effect franchise, and I absolutely love the ending to Mass Effect 3. The only multiplayer experience I've ever enjoyed for more than a few hundred hours is Rainbow Six Siege, well over 1,000 hours in. Not too crazy, but I'm setting a benchmark here. I didn't enjoy Doom 2016 or Doom Eternal. The Witcher 3 failed to draw me into the story, putting it down after slogging through the first 20 hours. And the new Wolfenstein? The combat bored me so much I stopped not 5 hours in. Now, let me try to clarify these statements with something important. I didn't think these were bad games. Quite the contrary, I wanted to like them, but I just couldn't. No one is going to successfully argue against the depth found inside The Witcher 3. It's a fantastic world, massive in both scope and design. I just couldn't bring myself to care about anyone in it. The passion behind the Doom reboot is so distinct it hurts. The soundtrack and how it's implemented is one of the best put into gaming, and the rip and tear gameplay is the best of its kind. It screams of Doom. The original being one of the first games I ever played and still have fond memories of. The attempt to humanize BJ in Wolfenstein 2 while still being a Nazi killing machine was a brave one to be commended, but the combat frustrated me as it felt like I wasn't actually doing anything outside of centering my screen on enemies. And BJ's random outbursts of pain and longing just came across as comical. Now, I can already hear you screaming. 26 hours, that's all you gave The Witcher 3? It deserves so much more than that. And you didn't even play the other games. Of course you're not going to care about anyone in it. Well, how about this? In my very first experience with the Mass Effect franchise, I played through the second installment in just around 28 hours. And in that time, I was completely invested in the universe, heading to GameStop immediately to play the first game and experience the story properly. The experience spoke to me as a player and a person in ways those other fantastic games just simply didn't. Now, why am I starting this video off with such dumbass statements that are going to upset more people than they speak to? This video isn't to trigger people. This video is for me and people like me. People will say, you didn't like that game? How could you? Did you even give it a real chance? Are you stupid? I don't think there's ever really been a bad game made because games are art, and art will never speak to everyone who experiences it. For every game I despise, there's probably 1,000 people who adore it, and that's okay. I decided to look into what people around me use to determine if a game is good and if it's not. I'm going to show off some of my favorite bad games and some of my disliked good games. No fear of spoilers here, as I'll mostly be covering gameplay, so enough rambling, let's get into it. What is the scale that we measure games on? What makes a good game? Graphics, story writing, the engine it runs on? I asked a couple of friends on how they define a good game, and this is what a couple of them said. Brant said it has to have really good gameplay. It doesn't have to be unique, but it does need original content. Ryan said it has to have continuous playability. I want a game that I can play for 1,000 hours or more. Spam said fluid game mechanics and a good story. Colin said it just has to be fun, and Pooh said it has to have replayability and a good story. For me, I define a good game very simply. Do I think about it when I get off? No one laid out anything quantifiable. Ratings for games are entirely subjective, and apart from major review sources, they will vary greatly from person to person because everyone has a different definition of what great is. There are certainly things that we can look at and agree will lead to a game being objectively poor, such as a buggy experience, a lack of expected features, poor balance or level design, pay-to-win aspects, or having to run on Origin. But what I want to look at is why some objectively bad games can be seen as great. Let's set a very simple definition for what makes a game good. Do you enjoy it? The game that inspired this essay was Sleeping Dogs, which is the spiritual successor to the now dead True Crime series. I absolutely loved true crimes when I was younger, and while I was too young to give you an honest review of the series, I was excited to hear about Sleeping Dogs and picked up a copy as soon as I could. I've never cared much for looking at games with a critical eye. I'm hard enough on movies and I play to relax, so especially the fact that I was in high school, I didn't notice how bad the game was the first 2 times I played through it. What I did notice was that I had a great time playing it and always found myself going back to it when I had nothing else to play. Then one day I found Dartigan's GameSense series, linked down below, and binged it over the course of a week. Naturally, he did a video on Sleeping Dogs, and I couldn't even pretend to disagree with how bad the game really was. However, something strange happened. When I left the theaters up in arms over The Rise of Skywalker or The Last Jedi, I watched multiple hours long rants pointing out all the ways I hadn't even noticed they were terrible, and on a second viewing, I was even more upset throughout the experience. But when revisiting the streets of Hong Kong, I just couldn't be upset at the game. No matter how bad I knew it was, it had no effect on the good time I have with the game. Instead of being angry about the garbage fire I was wading through, I'm laughing at the ridiculousness of the situation I'm in. Whether I'm running from police in a chicken van or slow-mo action diving onto a speeding car on the freeway, something dumb is always happening and I'm always having a good time. The primary combat system in the game is melee combat, and the only real way to change your fighting style is by changing the outfit you wear and how many times in a row you press the attack button. But when I smack someone in the face with a staff I conjured out of thin air, I can't help but laugh. The theme in this game is so dark and gritty as Wei battles the mental stresses of being an undercover agent wading through the bloody world he's immersed himself in. But in between the dark realities of a criminal underworld, you can dress up like a kung fu action star and beat up a temple full of monks. The gun combat is even worse, in which you're given the RNG square from hell and just hope you hit whatever's inside of it. But you can dress up as Agent 47 and rock the silver ballers, so it's really not all bad. I should hate this game. Hell, everyone should hate this game. But it's just so fun. It went full circle and became so bad it's good. This is what gaming is all about, right? Having fun? It doesn't even meet my own metric for how I define a game as being good. I never thought about Poor Wei Shen when I went to bed, but I'm always drawn back to it simply because it always puts me in a better mood when I play it, and I appreciate that. So let's transition to a not so surprising game to talk about, Skyrim. Skyrim is the perfect example of being objectively bad and yet so popular. It's buggy, has totally boring combat, essentially no speech system, a slew of underwritten quests, and runs on an engine that was coded right around the same time they wrote the Constitution. And yet, every time I decide to just pop in for a quick walk around, I get lost in the world for hours. I'm happy to just throw on some fine clothes, my favorite hat, and just hang out in the world, perfecting my smithing and enchanting or learning about alchemy. Going on a hunting trip for a beast to put in my trophy room. Mods definitely keep Skyrim relevant. Hell, I downloaded 4 mods just because this sentence encouraged me to go look at what's new on the Nexus. I spent 2 hours just moving trophies to a new house mod I installed and finding more to fill slots on the wall. It's like nicotine. No one wants to be stuck on something so gross, but once the hooks are in, it's nearly impossible to quit. And I don't think that's such a bad thing. If something can keep my attention for years and it's not detrimental to my life, like nicotine actually is, I'm happy to let it. Now, does all this really matter? No. But it's 1 a.m. on September 11th, and seeing my neighbor's flag illuminated across the street has me sentimental. Maybe all I really wanted to get across right now is the love that we should be spreading. Games are meant to bring us together, and I hate to see the negativity they often bring with them. Be kind to your neighbors and your fellow gamers. A quote had stuck in my mind throughout writing this script, so I went out to do a little research on who said it and where they were coming from. The answer to this little mystery touched me, so I'll give you the TLDR. Satoru Iwata took the helm at Nintendo on May 24, 2002, and served with distinction until his death on July 11, 2015, still working from his hospital bed giving feedback on Pokemon Go. He was quoted in saying that, "On my business card, I am a corporate president. In my mind, I am a game developer, but in my heart, I am a gamer." The man dedicated his life to gaming, so I'm confident in saying he's qualified source to determine what gaming is supposed to mean. He has said, "Above all, games are meant to be just one thing. Fun. Fun for everyone." So there it is. Games are just meant to be fun. They're a complex and beautiful art form, and you should never be ashamed that an experience speaks to you. I guess this message is for game developers as well. There will be backlash for any piece of art you put into the world that's filled with your passions. I can't save you from that, and maybe that criticism will be in good faith, allowing you to improve your work. Regardless, I want you to know that for everyone screaming about how awful what you did is, there's someone sitting at home quietly wondering how they didn't love it. Entertainment is a fascinating industry in that something doesn't have to be good to be loved. Some of my favorite games and movies are objectively flawed to the core, and I couldn't care less. There are no bad games, so seek out what brings you joy. This is my first attempt at original content, and I hope you enjoyed it. I appreciate any feedback, and if you just didn't like it, tell me down below. I'm sure it'll make everyone better, and you won't find any deleted comments here. If you don't like me, just tell me down below. That's all from me for now, so this is Purple, signing off. Have a wonderful night, and always remember to smile.